Hi, and welcome back to the third episode of Politics with Pops. I'm Allie,
I'm Alan.
and today we're discussing politics. So, today we're talking about freedom of speech and censorship. This is our very first special topic episode, so we kind of both decided we would do freedom of speech.
Yeah, freedom of speech goes back to the Bill of Rights in the First Amendment.
And the Constitution and all that crap. So, I'm gonna let my dad start.
So, First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances.
Wow. Interesting that's talking about petitioning the government and protest. Interesting.
Petition. That's when you sign a document, don't you?
But the thing is protesting is like a part of it is a protected speech.
It is.
So
Violent protest is not protected speech.
I can agree with that. Yeah, so some of the things I kind of want to talk about, like with freedom of speech, I do want to talk about like in schools a lot of different things are banned for free speech, from teachers or professors or whoever from talking about. What else can you think is speech that I guess isn't protected that we can kind of talk about?
Can't yell fire in a crowded theater is the classic one.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's like
But
the example.
incitement, you can't incite people to a riot. You can't actually threaten somebody, a true
Yeah.
threat. You can't do obscenity or child pornography or fighting words, insults that are likely to get somebody to hit you back.
Okay.
And,
Wow, I'm surprised that.
and any speech related to criminal conduct is not protected.
Okay,
Interesting.
good.
I guess you could relate that to the LA riots too.
No comment to that.
And
Move
fraud,
on.
fraud,
Fraud, yeah.
lying to somebody to manipulate them or steal their money.
I feel like fraud, out of that list, fraud we don't really need to talk about because no one should scam someone out of their money. I should know firsthand. If you don't know this,
go ahead, tell the story.
Yeah, if you don't know this story, I have a really cute friend who I like love, and she is the kindest person in the world. Someone had made a fake Venmo account that had her picture. Even the name of it was the exact same as hers, except for there was a dash. And the account Venmo requested me $153 for groceries. And I just got home from work and I was like, yes, of course I'll Venmo her. I love her. So I Venmoed her $153. And then I texted my friend and I go, hey, I just Venmoed you. And she goes, I didn't Venmo you. I go, yes, you did. And I sent her a screenshot and I sent it to her. And she goes, Allie, that's not my Venmo. And then I started freaking out and I went to go and request this money back from this person. And when I went to go hit request, I accidentally hit the pay button and I paid them another $153. Yeah, I don't support fraud at all.
Apparently you do support it.
I supported that person real well. Oh, so bad. So bad.
You may have a long lost relative that's royalty in Nigeria that you may want to contact.
Yeah, if you guys want to Venmo me, just let me know. I will be using your money for makeup, nail polish, running supplies, workout gear. So funny. All right. So, what were we talking about? Protected speech.
Yeah, freedom of speech. We were talking about which kinds of speech is not protected.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were talking about censorship as well, and they're kind of related. I don't know if you can separate them too much.
Yeah, they are super related.
I mean,
and censorship is not you are fully allowed to censor people.
Well, the government isn't allowed to censor people.
Oh, yeah, 100%. The government is not.
But apparently, there's this little loophole that businesses that run, like, I don't know what's uh, Mark
X,
Zuckerberg's and
Facebook,
yeah, Facebook.
Instagram,
I mean, that's
TikTok,
the reason why Elon Musk
the things I'm
bought
running.
X was because he kept getting censored. So, and other people kept getting censored. So he bought it so that there could be scientific debate at the time, you know.
Yeah. Which, but I think companies have every right to censor someone.
Yeah, but they're also protected from any kind of a lawsuit too. So I think that one goes with the other. If you're going to have the protection of the government against lawsuits for how you censor people, then you probably ought to not be able to censor people, except when it is
The
one of those categories.
my thing with like social media and all that stuff, like if there's child porn on like social media, it gets taken down immediately. There's a
Yeah,
lot of stuff that gets taken down like immediately. The thing is I think of it like whatever an office building. If someone was to come in and start yelling the F slur, right, they would be immediately removed
yeah,
for a good reason.
yeah. Or if you burst into a speech by a you know cabinet member, then you're going to be ejected and arrested.
Yeah, was that a reference to something? You're
Yeah,
smiling. What is a reference?
recently a Democrat did that.
Okay. Well, the thing is like what depends on what he was yelling. Was he yelling any slurs?
He was disrupting the meeting.
But was he just
Well, you're
disrupting the
still
meeting, or was
disrupting somebody's speech.
yeah,
They have
that
the
that is
floor.
considered censorship, but I don't know. That's kind of a
I
hard
mean, the thing
one.
is, Alan Dershowitz, who is a traditional liberal, of course, he defended O.J. Simpson, he
Mm,
defended
I
Bill
hate OJ
Bill
Simpson.
Clinton.
Okay,
He
I like Bill.
but he also defended Trump, so that's where everybody started to
Hate
really
him.
hate Dershowitz. Yeah,
But here, okay,
got removed
hold
from
on,
all
hold
the
on, hold
good
on.
party lists.
I believe that every person on the planet has a right to free speech. 100%. I think people should be able to say whatever they want.
And a
The
solid defense.
the issue is I think people who do that need to understand that there are consequences to what you say. Does that make sense? There's a reason, like, I hate Trump. There's a reason thousands and probably millions of people hate Trump. It's because of what he says,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people who are
And that's a consequence.
protesting for Gaza.
Ugh, we're not
I,
getting into that.
but there are a lot of businesses that try to keep tabs on these people and will not hire them. So there
Yeah,
are consequences.
there is. Yeah, it is. There's so many consequences, and the thing is like we get to a point where it's like, you know how they talk about like, is it a threat to someone? Is it causing someone else harm? Like that's kind of like the big questions that they ask in the Supreme Court, right? And the crazy thing, like now with speech and everything that's happening, is there are things that like could cause suicide or could cause like a mother to feel like she's not enough and leave her family, or like lots of stuff that could cause like people to harm themselves or people to harm other people. Like, you know how
Yeah, but you've had the same thing traditionally in fashion magazines where girls thought they weren't skinny enough. So
interesting. Sorry, this is a total side note. Interesting, fun little fact is when Republicans are like in office and stuff, and like the Republicans are like president and the Senate and all that stuff, and kind of running everything. Um, Women's eating disorders and body image becomes on the rise. Isn't that horrible?
issues about body image come on the
Issues
rise.
about like eating disorders go up insanely
Yeah,
because isn't that
I
wild?
think if you get to that point, then you probably ought to put the some of the stuff down.
What do you mean?
and just live your life.
The issue is like,
I mean, I've occasionally had to do that to angry old man radio. It just gets
yeah.
to be too much. You start getting angry, and then
And then you're
you got
mean.
to set it
And
down
then you're
once in a
mean
while.
to your
You just
19-year-old daughter. Should we talk about cancel culture? That's huge right now.
yeah.
It's kind of coming back.
Is it?
It's always been a thing. Like, people are canceled for like different things. There was a girl on Love Island who was canceled and she got pulled out of the show in the middle of the night.
She wasn't liberal enough,
No.
or
Oh no, Dad,
she
Love
said
Island?
something truly offensive.
No, there's videos of her saying the N-word.
Oh.
Her reposts were very racist. Like, she deserved to be canceled, let's be honest.
I mean, it's relevant because if you're saying the N word, was she white or black?
I think she was Hispanic.
Yeah.
That may not be right, but I think she was
I mean, I'm a white guy, so I can say cracker.
Okay. But Dad, you can't. We can have this argument later, but you can't be racist towards white people.
I can't.
No, I'm just saying, like, people can't be racist towards white people.
Why?
This isn't like the topic we're on, but
okay. Well,
but I just think like we haven't ever been suppressed and we haven't been a minority and
yeah, I mean, yeah, you got to remember the history of immigration. We had the Italians come, and there was racial slurs for those, and then the Irish came, and there was racial slurs for the Irish. But then they eventually melted in, and nobody gave a crap about any of that stuff.
Exactly, it just mattered that you're white.
Not really.
We can get into that later. That can be another topic. I just think that's too off freedom of speech because
I mean, America voted for a black president. We're
I'm not calling
over that stuff.
I'm not calling America racist. I'm not saying that.
Brought up.
You're right. America voted for Obama, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that America is racist. I'm just saying that you can be racist. A white person can't be. You can't be racist towards a white person because, like, it's a different story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but there's the whole concept of white privilege, and
there's white privilege. Are you arguing that there's not white privilege? It's the same thing that if I was to go into a store and you were to go into a store, they'd be a lot nicer to me than to you because I'm, like, no offense to you, but I'm pretty and skinny. Not skinny, but I'm pretty and I look good.
So you're implying that this.
But I'm just saying you get treated different, right?
Oh yeah.
You do. But if people like all the time, like people of color have to have a discussion with their kids about how to act in front of a police officer.
The talk, yeah.
The talk, exactly. Like, there is even a girl in my grade, and she was talking to me, and she's like, yeah, my brothers, like, have to be careful. They were playing night games, and they got the police called on them, and they've been threatened with a gun because there's black kids running around. It's, like, so horrible.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen to white people.
No.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Not to the same frequency, but a lot of the statistics out there are really exaggerated.
There's a website. It's called the FBI Crime Data Explorer. I also know that a lot of states have the same thing, like where you can look up all the statistics you could possibly want. It shows hate crimes. It shows police died in on the clock or whatever that's called on their shifts. It shows like everything you could possibly imagine. It shows homicide, law enforcement employment data, so it shows like race of employment. It shows everything you could possibly like want. The reason for this is so that the US and also like different states can do a better job at protecting like the communities and protecting their states. But a lot of people don't know that this exists, and so I thought it was important to mention.
Yeah, I mean, that way you can check your facts and see if your perceptions match reality.
Okay, yeah, sure. People can do that. I also want to mention there is on every statistics that you have, there's a special name for it, but it's basically you have to think about what's not reported. You have to think about the people they didn't ask, the people they didn't arrest, the people they let off with warnings. There's a lot of officers who sometimes don't report things if they don't look good in it. Um,
Yeah.
so just different things to think about. Like those are factors in any statistic. If you use Statista or whatever the FBI analytical information and stuff. But I do think like with freedom of speech, it's always when you do have like the chance to speak that you do it educated, if that makes sense. Come with statistics, come with facts.
Not facts, not opinions. Yeah.
Yeah. I really do believe, especially with politics, is come with facts and opinions. I think with everything, like if you look at it from a logical standpoint, um, it makes you a better speaker.
Yeah, but there is bias. I mean,
Oh, 100%. I'm fully biased.
Biden is sharp as a
I
tack.
hate Trump.
Everything's wonderful.
Like
he's definitely on top of everything. I've never seen him sharper. All these other stories
that is so
out.
we're trying to get away from the news, okay?
Okay.
We're talking about freedom of speech. And you had every right to say that.
Well,
but I censored your ass.
Well, I think that the press ought to speak truth to power. Right now, that's the Republicans. But when it changes, and sooner or later it will, I think they ought to be speaking truth to the other power as well. That's their
It's
job.
not.
It's the fifth
The issue
estate.
is I really think that's like not happening right now. Every news source is speaking on their side, on what, like
their opinions.
On their opinions, and
yeah,
that's completely fine, right? Because you have to get a story. That's how you get people to watch your thing. But I do have to say it's becoming. I think at one point we are going to have a national information crisis where we don't know what's true, we don't know what's fake, and I think like we need to prepare for that to do our own research.
We're there a little bit right now.
We are there right now. And like and I think like look at what happened, look at firsthand accounts, figure it out on your own, and then make an opinion.
Yeah, read the quote in context.
Yeah, I think that's so important, especially with like free speech, because people can like give you a bias, and it does happen like on both sides of the political spectrum. Especially I feel like the right says the most crazy things, especially about people who are immigrants. They say whatever, they say crazy things about Biden, whatever they can do to make their side fueled with old man anger. Get all the old people. And so they do say, that's why they mention stuff about whatever, they LGBTQ and random things that they find about transgender people from like one person in one tiny town.
Well, if you have a commentator, then that's somebody who's opinionated and should be expressing their opinion. If you have a newscaster, the opinion should stay the heck out of it, and they should cast facts. They should talk about facts.
But the thing is like no one is going to watch that. It's like no one's going to watch it. And there's people, I think people will watch it, but I think that there's people who are like, if it doesn't match their political viewpoint, they won't listen to it.
Yeah, what's wrong?
That's a big thing.
What's wrong with hearing the opposite side of your viewpoint? I mean,
the thing is we've gotten to a point where it's like when other people on opposite sides like you'll be honest, like we've had discussions, not on this podcast, like we've had discussions where I've left crying, or like I'll throw a zinger out and you'll go home thinking, you'll go to your room and think I'm a horrible father. like there is times
Yeah,
where I will.
it's an argument
It's
about
hard to have,
politics.
yeah.
It's no reason to bring personal
You're
zingers
a
to
horrible father. Like, no, yeah, I throw some zingers in there. I'll be so honest. But I think like it's hard to have politics and speech and news and all that stuff without getting emotional, because like a woman's right to an abortion is an emotional thing.
for you.
Like for anyone, for me, like knowing that a woman's like choice was taken away for her own body, like that's emotional. I also like want to say like different things provide, like I think LGBTQ people like have a right to be married, and that gets me emotional because I think about like some of my friends like who are LGBTQ like plus, and I think like they deserve to get married. It shouldn't matter like that they have to go to a different state to get married. They should get married, be able to get married wherever they want. And I think it's hard to have separate emotion from politics. It can't be done. That's why I think they don't talk about both sides.
Yeah, I mean, half that stuff, I agree that a lot of places are going off the deep end in anti-abortion, and other places are going off the
Like the
deep end in pro-abortion.
yeah. And I think it's getting to the point, especially the right, they're getting to a point where they're like, "Oh, we're pro-life. We're pro-life." And then this is off topic of freedom of speech, but it does have to do with going
The
having
debate.
having too much speech basically, which we can, but it goes, then the right goes and says, "Oh, like no one can ever have an abortion, even an emergency abortion when the mother's life will be dead." I was like, "Are you really pro-life?"
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
I don't think you
I don't think
can.
a lot of mainstream well, I don't know. There is a religious fervor in a lot of people, but you know, I think for the most part, a lot of people are a little bit more neutral on that, and that if it's for the life of the mother, or incest or rape, that you know the state ought to stay the hell out of it.
Yeah.
If it's
Especially men.
early on.
I do have to say, men, like, it really pisses me off when men get into the issue of rape.
I mean,
It really irks me.
we have this long established precedent. If it is early on, but I don't think most people debate that. Especially, it can be done with a pill, for hell's sakes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, this is so off topic, but
but if
whatever.
it's
It's
really
special
late,
topic. We can talk about
there
whatever.
are people that say, "What you didn't, it's 8 months. You didn't know you're pregnant. Now you're going to have that's ridiculous." You
But
know,
then what if their life changed? What if they realized that baby had Down syndrome? And they're like, "I can't do it."
yeah. It,
If I, dad, pretend like I was pregnant, right? Okay.
mm-hmm.
Hypothetically, I'm not saying I'm pregnant. I would get an abortion. Just kidding. Say I was pregnant, right? And the government told me that I had to keep my baby, and if I had that baby, I would die. Would you want me to go to another state and have an abortion?
Yeah, if your life was in danger,
Yeah,
yeah,
but we're getting to the point where people are going off the deep end with their beliefs.
yeah. I
You cannot agree with abortion.
I
That's
have a little
fine.
problem enforcing morality, your own morality, onto somebody else.
So bad.
As long as what they're doing isn't
Immoral.
hurting anybody else, or
Thank you, Dad.
then
Preach. Preach.
then that's fine. But there have to be some kind of limitations, I think, because 8 months is ridiculous. It's not like you didn't know you were pregnant at 8 months.
We're getting so off the deep end. We also are talking about abortion and freedom of speech. Well, it's okay if I move on from that.
Yeah.
I do want to mention the banning of books in schools. What are your thoughts on that? Some examples of books that have been banned. Holocaust books have been banned in some schools. Talk about the Holocaust. Anything to do with like a lot of changing your body's changing books kind of things have been banned. Anything that talks about being gay, has the word gay in it, have been banned, like especially in Utah. Do you want me to pull up a list or kind of
No,
you get the idea?
we get the idea.
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Uh,
Should they be banned?
I don't like the concept of banning, but a school is a kind of a protected place.
But the thing is
But
they're
are we
limiting
protecting
free
them from?
speech.
Are we protecting them from facts, or are we protecting them from opinions? If we're protecting them from opinions, I'm okay with that, unless there's a counter opinion being presented
But
at
I have
the
a
same
question. I bet I have a question, okay? Do you think in the state of Utah, if there's a book that was found and it talked about like coming out as gay and whatever, some person's journey coming out to
Somebody
their
in some
parents.
small town, somebody will go off the deep end and ban it. Yeah.
But and then there was a book talking about um a girl who found God and decided to have a baby of the rapist, right? And not get an abortion and live her life. Do you think it would be banned? Probably not.
Probably not. But,
Which is
again, that's
insane.
her own
But the thing is
personal decision.
it's someone's decision, but at the end of the day, it's like you can't do that. You can't pick and choose what you keep and what you ban.
I don't like the concept of interjecting the government between a person and their doctor.
Yeah.
But I don't like the concept of extreme abortion. Which is really late term, really.
Why are we
So
still on abortion? Move on.
I'm sorry.
Move
So
on.
back
Sorry.
to banning books. Yeah, I mean, look at Dr. Seuss. I mean, canceled like crazy. Good heavens.
I do. I love All the Places You'll Go. Such a good book.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't know he was canceled.
Those are classic books that are, that teach people how to read, and, because they have repetitive sounds and words. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I think
I just have an issue with. I do not think any book should be banned in school. That's stupid. Also, no kids read anyway. And what if they're interested in reading a book that's banned?
They're gonna find it somewhere anyway.
Exactly. Like I think if I was in middle school, like I would read banned books. I'm like, why is this book banned? I would want to know why.
Yeah, you'd find the list and you'd go out and check them all out.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm like, banning a book is doing nothing.
Well, that's your rebellious nature.
Well,
I mean, you found out that white labs were
white labs, white yellow
Labradors
dogs
were more expensive than black Labradors, and it just pissed you off. So you had to have
a black Labrador. Because
she's been an awesome dog.
She's perfect, but tell me why yellow labs are more expensive than black labs.
Yeah,
that is so stupid.
It's dog racism.
No, literally. Tell me why people on KSL think they have a right to make their yellow lab more expensive. Like, no, that's stupid. Just because,
unfortunately,
ridiculous.
The market, So, what about censorship?
I think censorship. There's nothing illegal about censorship in people's lives. There is on the government, but in people's lives, there's nothing about it.
Well, as long as you're attacking the facts, not the opinion.
I actually do agree. We attack ideas and not people, unless the person is a rapist and a felon. Then we attack them.
Then we deport them.
No, I was referring to Trump.
Okay.
But I always believe that we attack facts and ideas, not people. And I think we've seriously gotten away with it. But there is sometimes when I don't think people should be listened to because they've lost respect. If you were trying to have a debate with someone who went to prison, who said that they wanted to I'm not going to use Trump as an example. I'm just going to use general. Someone who went to prison and was a horrible person, and you were debating with them, would you have a hard time listening to their ideas?
It depends on their attitude.
They murdered someone.
And they...
But you would feel like, and they were arguing that.
Yeah,
they were saying that they're pro-life.
They're in the midst of punishment now. And they're, now their opinion is life is sacred, which was, where was that, when you committed the crime?
But do you think, like, you wouldn't have any respect for them? And I think, like, that also goes along.
It would play a factor, but, it depends on the person. It depends on how convincing they are that they have, I don't know, found God or whatever, or, gotten enlightened by thinking more universally, whatever it is,
I truly believe, like, it's hard for me to have respect for someone if I know they're not a good person. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's hard for me to listen.
They've done horrible deeds.
Exactly. Like, it's hard for me to listen to someone and, like, I'm like, oh, your ideas are interesting, right? When you know, like, that they've done horrible things.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it's so impossible to separate ideas from people. And in the media, like, people, either side focuses on the worst parts of the people in charge. The worst parts. Yeah. And I think that's why either side doesn't listen. Like, I think as Democrats, like, that's a reason why we don't listen to Trump, is because, like, he's a horrible person.
Everybody says he's a Nazi, but he's not doing anything Nazi to me.
There's a reason.
I like his policies. I do not like all his rhetoric.
He is ruling like a king, though. He's ignoring stuff that the Supreme Court is ruling.
No, he's not.
I'm just saying, like,
if anything, the worst person to do that was Biden.
But the thing is Trump uses his free speech too much. Use your right to free speech, but understand that there are consequences.
The purpose of that is to convince somebody else of your opinions.
But the thing is like, at the end of the day, it's like, you are allowed to do that, but understand, like, if you're at a job and you're saying things, you can get fired.
Yeah, you can't be posting your opinions and, where it can be linked to your company, and all of a sudden your whole company is, because of you, is linked to one side of an issue. Most companies, especially in this day and age, want to stay the hell out of politics, want to just toe the middle ground.
Except for Tesla.
And we live in a world where everybody's going to take offense no matter what. So don't get mad at Allie. Cancel me.
You say that every time.
I do.
I think we don't really have a plan for a special topic next week, but we'll probably announce it on next Monday with our episode.
On Monday, we'll be talking about
Maryland
news for the week.
News for the week.
Which has been a lot.
Yeah, I need to catch up. Been watching Love
Israel,
Island.
Iran.
World War III. That's a big topic. Okay, I feel like we're kind of wrapping up.
Yeah, I think so.
Which is fine. Special topic Friday. Anything else to add about freedom of speech?
No.
I think one important thing is, if you're ever wondering, like, you have to know what's protected speech and what's not. If you ever want to know, like, more about that, look at Supreme Court cases of freedom of speech, because there's so many and they're pretty interesting. Okay, well, we will see you guys on Monday.
Well, looking forward to it. See you then.